The classroom smelled like pencil shavings and dry erase markers. The late afternoon sun cut through the dusty blinds, casting long, golden lines across the scuffed linoleum floor. Most kids were half asleep, tapping on their desks, waiting for the final bell. That was when Ms. Thornton's voice sliced through the hum. "All right, everyone," she said, clapping her hands with that tight smile she always wore when pretending to care, "let's go around and share your post-high school dreams. College, careers, whatever you're aiming for. Speak up. Be proud." Kira Jenkins sat in the third row, right near the flickering ceiling light. She didn't fidget like the others. She had been waiting for this moment. When her turn came, she stood up slowly, holding her notebook tight against her chest. Her voice was steady but soft. "I want to go to Harvard," she said. For a second, the room was silent. Dead silent. Then it happened. Ms. Thornton blinked, tilted her head, and let out a dry laugh. "Harvard," she said, as if Kira had just announced she was moving to Mars. A few kids chuckled. Someone in the back muttered, "She's serious?" Miss Thornton waved her hand dismissively. "Sweetheart, let's be a little more realistic, okay? Maybe start with a community college? Or something with less pressure." Kira's smile faded. Her fingers gripped her notebook tighter, her knuckles turning white. "But I've been researching their political science program since I was 10. I've already started practicing for the SAT. "That's cute," Miss Thornton said with a patronizing tone, "but those schools have very competitive standards. Don't set yourself up for disappointment." The bell rang just as Miss Thornton turned to the next student. The sound was loud, but not loud enough to drown out the sting. Kira didn't move. She stood frozen as students filed out, some whispering, some looking at her with pity, others with smirks. Her friend Olivia caught her eye and mouthed, "Ignore her." But it was too late. The shame had already taken root. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Kira sat alone on the old city bus, her backpack tugging her down as if it shared the weight of what just happened. The bus bounced over potholes as she stared out the window, eyes unfocused. Outside, South Side Chicago rolled past her, brick buildings, graffiti-covered walls, corner stores, barbershops with faded posters taped to the windows. She whispered the word under her breath again. Harvard. As if saying it out loud could make it real again. At home, her little brother Malik greeted her at the door like always, launching himself into her arms. "Kiki," he giggled. "Guess what? I beat the boss in my game." "That's awesome, bug," she said, forcing a smile. Their apartment was small, just 3 rooms, but it was filled with warmth. The smell of cornbread and greens drifted from the kitchen, where her mother, Shayla Jenkins, worked 2 jobs but still found time to cook every night. "You okay?" her mom asked, noticing Kira's quiet demeanor. Kira shrugged. "Miss Thornton laughed at me today." Shayla wiped her hands on a towel, her brow creasing. "What happened?" "I told the class I wanted to go to Harvard." Shayla raised an eyebrow. "And?" "She said I should be more realistic. Said I was setting myself up for disappointment." There was a pause. Shayla's face didn't change much, but her eyes darkened. "She did, huh?" she said slowly. Kira looked down. "Maybe she's right." Her mother walked over and gently lifted Kira's chin. "Baby girl, don't you ever let somebody else decide what you can or can't do. Especially someone who don't even know you like that. You hear me?" Kira nodded. But it still hurt. Later that night, she opened her notebook again, the one with the Harvard crest sketched carefully in the corner. She flipped past pages of research, essay prompts, schedules, and handwritten affirmations. "I will walk through Harvard Yard. I am worth the dream." Now, those words felt foolish. She picked up her pen. She didn't cross them out. But she didn't add to them either. The next day, school felt colder. Olivia Morales, her best friend since 4th grade, sat down next to her in the cafeteria. "I saw your face yesterday. You looked like you got punched in the gut." She laughed at me, Liv. She's a bitter woman stuck in a beige classroom with 30-year-old posters. Don't give her power. Kira smiled faintly. I wish I had your confidence. It's not confidence. It's rage, Olivia smirked. And also, I saw this summer program. Harvard does this pre-college thing. It's for high schoolers. I think you should apply. Kira looked up, surprised. You serious? Dead serious. I saved the link. I'll text it to you after school. But what if I don't get in? Olivia rolled her eyes. Girl, then you try again. You don't stop dreaming because one person with a chalkboard says no. Something in Kira stirred again. Something small, but still alive. Back in class, Miss Thornton moved on to discussing standardized test prep. Kira barely heard her. Her mind was drifting, to possibility, to rejection, to hope. All of it swirled in her head. When the final bell rang, she walked slower this time, her steps thoughtful. Outside, the sky had turned a brilliant orange. Autumn was settling in. She could smell it in the air. As she boarded the bus, she glanced at her phone. A text from Olivia blinked at her screen. Application deadline is in 2 weeks. You in? Kira didn't reply right away. Instead, she opened her notebook again. She flipped to the affirmation page. This time, she didn't just read the words. She underlined them. Twice. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Southside Chicago doesn't make it easy to dream big. But for Kira Jenkins, dreaming wasn't just a hobby, it was survival. She lived on the 3rd floor of a weather-worn brick apartment building on 85th and Halsted, right above a laundromat where the machines never stopped humming. Their 2-bedroom unit was cramped but full of life. Her mother worked night shifts at St. Mary's Hospital and cleaned houses on weekends. Money was always tight, but love wasn't. Kira's room was small, barely enough for a twin bed, a rickety desk, and 2 stacks of books that leaned like tired trees. But to her, it was a castle. The walls were taped up with newspaper clippings, handwritten quotes, and a Harvard pennant she ordered off eBay for $4.99. Above her bed, written in black marker on a piece of printer paper, were the words. Harvard ain't just a school. It's a future with no ceiling. She first heard that line from her father. Kira was only 6 when her dad died. His name was Marcus Jenkins, a quiet man with thick glasses, an old soul, and a library card that lived in his wallet like an ID. He worked as a security guard at the University of Chicago, and every now and then, he'd sneak Kira onto campus on his lunch break. You see that building? He once asked her, pointing to a tall stone hall with ivy creeping up its sides. That's the kind of place you'll belong in someday. Kira didn't know what belong meant back then, not in that way. But the way he said it stuck. Like it was law. After his death, heart failure, unexpected and cruel, Kira stopped speaking for almost 3 weeks. It was her grandmother, Miss Delilah, who finally broke the silence. You keep all those words bottled up, she told Kira while stirring collard greens on the stove, they'll come out your eyes instead of your mouth. And your daddy wouldn't want you crying forever. Miss Delilah had a way with truth. She was 72, tough as leather, sweet as peach cobbler, and didn't take nonsense from anyone, including grief. She moved in with Shayla and the kids after Marcus passed, taking over the kitchen and half the parenting duties like it was a mission from God. Books'll save you, she'd always say. Same way they saved your daddy. Kira grew up in a world shaped by stories. Not fairy tales, but real ones, biographies, speeches, op-eds from The Atlantic, articles about black women in politics. She read about Shirley Chisholm and Michelle Obama, about Angela Davis and Condoleezza Rice. Women who didn't wait for a seat at the table, they built their own. Every summer, while other kids played outside, Kira spent hours at the library on 79th Street. The librarians knew her by name. They'd save her copies of The Economist and Teen Vogue alike. It wasn't that Kira thought she was better than anyone. She just felt like she was meant for more than what was around her. The bullet holes in the liquor store window. The sirens that became lullabies. The teachers who looked surprised every time she aced a test. She saw the world for what it was, but believed in what it could be. School, however, wasn't always a refuge. From an early age, Kira noticed something: when white students spoke confidently, they were praised as leaders. When she did, she was told to lower her tone. When she used big words, teachers raised their brows, like she was performing. Miss Thornton wasn't the first to doubt her. Just the loudest. She'd once corrected a math teacher, politely, only to be given detention. She asked once if the school could start a debate club. The principal told her, "We don't have the resources for that." But Kira never stopped trying. At home, her brother Malik was her shadow. At just 7 years old, he idolized his big sister. He'd sit on her floor while she studied, watching her highlight notes with colors like it was magic. He'd even try to mimic her, holding up picture books and studying them with exaggerated seriousness. "Am I gonna go to college too, Kiki?" he asked one night. "You're gonna go wherever you want," she replied. "And you'll have more options than I ever did." Malik didn't understand systems or inequality. But he understood that his sister believed in him, and that made him believe, too. Then there was Olivia. The daughter of Mexican immigrants, Olivia Morales was bold, funny, and had a laugh that could shake walls. She and Kira had been inseparable since elementary school, bonding over a shared love of graphic novels and a deep disdain for cafeteria food. Olivia was the only person Kira had ever let read her personal essays. The only one who knew that sometimes, Kira didn't feel good enough even when her grades said otherwise. The only one who didn't blink when Kira said, "I want to change the world." "Girl," Olivia once said, "you are the change." They studied together, dreamed together, failed and got back up, together. If Kira was fire, Olivia was gasoline. But even with a strong foundation, the cracks had started to show. The older she got, the more Kira saw the invisible walls around her. AP classes without enough seats. College counselors who barely remembered her name. Neighborhood friends who dropped out without anyone noticing. And now, Miss Thornton. That laugh. That smug dismissal. It echoed louder than it should have. But still, Kira kept writing. Kept highlighting. Kept building her world one sentence at a time. Because even when the world told her no, something inside her whispered. Just wait. Back in her room that night, Kira lit the vanilla candle on her desk, the one she always used when she needed to think clearly. She opened her notebook again. But this time, she turned to a new page. At the top, she wrote in bold letters. "My application plan." Underneath, she listed. Harvard Summer School, due, March 3rd. SAT prep schedule, Tuesdays/Thursdays. Personal essay ideas, start drafting this weekend. Ask Coach Davis about recommendation letter. She paused. Then, in all caps, she added one more line. This is not a dream. This is a plan. On Monday morning, the hallway felt heavier than usual. The overhead lights buzzed faintly, and lockers clanged open and shut in sharp rhythm. Kira walked slowly, each step more reluctant than the last. Her backpack seemed to pull at her shoulders harder today, like it too wasn't ready to face room 214 again. Miss Thornton's classroom door stood open like a mouth waiting to swallow her whole. Kira paused just outside it. Ignore her. You got this, Olivia whispered, brushing past her and heading to their shared desk by the window. You're walking in there like you already got your degree. Kira managed a small smirk, but her heart was racing. She stepped inside. Miss Thornton didn't even look up. Good morning, Kira said quietly, sliding into her seat. The teacher shuffled a few papers, adjusted her glasses, and replied flatly, Morning, class. She addressed the room like Kira hadn't spoken at all. As students settled in, Miss Thornton began her lecture. Today's topic, argumentative essays. Now, I know not all of you are future lawyers or politicians, she said, her voice laced with subtle sarcasm, but you'll still need to make convincing points. Even if no one listens. Kira looked up sharply. Was that meant for her? She glanced at Olivia, who raised an eyebrow and shook her head. Don't take the bait, she mouthed. But it was already too late. Kira's stomach was tightening. Her face warmed. She scribbled a note in the margin of her notebook, writing faster than her thoughts. When your truth threatens someone else's comfort, they'll try to make you smaller. She didn't know where that sentence came from. But it felt true. And it felt like fuel. As the class broke into group discussions, Kira and Olivia were paired together, as usual. They leaned in close, whispering over the textbook. You think she was talking about me? Kira asked, pretending to read. Please, Olivia scoffed. Of course she was. That lady's passive-aggressive enough to run a therapy podcast. Kira let out a small laugh. She's been acting different since the Harvard thing, Kira said. Like I stepped out of line just by wanting more. You didn't step out of line. You stepped out of her expectation box. That's different. Their eyes met. You know what I think? Olivia added, voice low. I think she's scared. Of what? Of you. Of what you represent. You're not supposed to be smart and confident and black. That messes with her whole framework. Kira blinked. No one had ever said it like that before. As the bell rang and students began packing up, Miss Thornton called out, Kira, can I see you for a moment? Olivia froze. Kira nodded tightly and approached the desk. Miss Thornton adjusted her necklace, not looking up. I've noticed some attitude lately. I understand that teenagers have big dreams, but there's a way to be ambitious without being disruptive. Kira blinked. Disruptive? How was I disruptive? That comment last week about Harvard. The way you said it, like it was a foregone conclusion. I wasn't trying to be arrogant. I was just answering the question. Miss Thornton's lips curled slightly. It came off differently. You should be mindful of tone. Kira stared at her. Tone. There it was again. I didn't say anything with a tone, she replied, her voice now calm, cool. I said it the same way everyone else did. Miss Thornton finally looked up. Kira, look. I'm trying to help you. There's nothing wrong with community college. Or trade school. Plenty of students from here go that route and do very well. Kira drew in a breath. I never said there was anything wrong with that. But that's not my path. And I won't apologize for wanting more. The word surprised even her. But they landed with weight. Miss Thornton looked at her like she had just spoken in a foreign language. You can go, she said quietly. Kira didn't wait for more. Outside in the hall, Olivia was leaning against the lockers. Well, she asked. She thinks I have an attitude. Oh honey, Olivia rolled her eyes, that's code for, you didn't stay in your assigned box. They walked toward the cafeteria together. The hallway buzzed around them, but Kira felt strangely clear. For the first time, she didn't feel crushed. She felt lit up. Later that day, During gym class, Kira noticed someone watching her from across the bleachers, Coach Davis, the PE teacher who rarely said much but always seemed to be paying attention. After class, he approached her. "Jenkins," he said, in his gravelly voice, "you got a second?" She nodded, nervous. "I overheard a little in the hallway this morning," he said. "That whole thing with Thornton." Kira braced herself. "I just want you to know," he continued, "don't let anyone water you down. You speak the way you speak. You aim where you aim. You got me?" Kira was stunned. "Why yes, sir." He handed her a folded sheet of paper. "Check that out. Ivy League summer programs. I was at Columbia for undergrad. I know the game. If you want help applying, I'm around." She looked at the paper, heart racing. This was real. This was support. "Thank you," she whispered. Coach Davis nodded once and walked off. That night, Kira stared at the paper for a long time. Olivia had already texted her, sending screenshots of the Harvard summer program homepage. Now Coach Davis was offering help, too. Suddenly, she wasn't alone in this dream anymore. And Miss Thornton? She was just one voice. A loud one, sure. But no longer the only one. Kira pulled her notebook off the shelf and opened to a clean page. She wrote. "They see the world as it is. I see it as it could be. And I'm not asking for permission to believe in more." The kitchen was warm with the scent of sweet potatoes and rosemary chicken. It was the one place in the apartment that always felt like it belonged to a different world, one untouched by loud sirens, unpaid bills, or dismissive teachers. Kira stood barefoot on the cold tile floor, peeling carrots into the sink while her mom, Shayla Jenkins, stirred a steaming pot of rice on the stove. The radio played soft R&B in the background, old-school jams her mom swore were real music, not the tick-tock noise Kira listened to with Olivia. But tonight, the music felt like a heartbeat, steady, grounding. "Coach Davis gave me a program to look into today," Kira said casually, tossing a carrot peel into the trash. "It's for high schoolers. At Harvard." Her mother's hand paused mid-stir. Slowly, she turned to face her daughter. "And what did he say?" she asked, eyes narrowing like she was reading more than words. "He said he could help. That he went to Columbia and knows how this kind of stuff works." Shayla leaned against the counter, arms crossed, a soft smirk playing on her lips. "And what did you say?" "I said I'd think about it," Kira shrugged, pretending the weight of that offer hadn't been keeping her chest tight all afternoon. "Well," Shayla said, "you've been talking about Harvard since you were what, 9? 10? 7, Kira corrected. "I saw a picture of it in a book from the library. I thought it looked like Hogwarts." Shayla let out a low chuckle. "You told your grandma it was a magic school for smart kids." "It still kinda is." They both laughed. Then the quiet settled in again, and with it, something deeper. Kira leaned back against the fridge. "Miss Thornton still doesn't believe I can do it." Her mother didn't flinch. "She laughed when I said I wanted to go," Kira added. Shayla nodded slowly. "People like her have small imaginations. Yours scares her. She said I should be realistic. That maybe community college was a better fit." There was a silence. Then a sharp clatter as Shayla dropped the wooden spoon into the sink with a little too much force. "You know what your daddy used to say?" she asked, wiping her hands with a dish towel. Kira looked up. "He'd say, the only thing worse than someone doubting you is them convincing you to doubt yourself." Kira felt her throat tighten. "I miss him," she whispered. "I do too, baby," her mom said, moving closer. "Every single day. But listen, if he was here right now, he wouldn't be mad at Miss Thornton. He'd be mad if you let her voice get louder than your own." They stood there for a moment, the kitchen clock ticking softly behind them. I'm scared I'll try and still fail, Kira said, her voice barely above a whisper. Shayla reached out and tucked a loose curl behind Kira's ear, just like she used to when she was a little girl. That's not failure, honey. That's courage. Failure is never showing up for yourself. Later that evening, after dinner and dishes, Kira sat at the dining table with her laptop open, staring at the Harvard Summer School application page. It felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. Everything she wanted was on the other side, but the drop between her and it looked terrifying. Her mom walked by and set a mug of tea next to her, peppermint, her favorite. Don't overthink it, Shayla said, pausing with a hand on Kira's shoulder. Just start. Don't worry about being perfect. Kira nodded. She clicked the Apply button. The screen loaded a new page, asking for basic information. Name. Address. School. GPA. She typed each one carefully, as if each letter meant something bigger. Then she reached the prompt. Describe a challenge you faced and how it shaped who you are. She stared at the blinking cursor. Then she opened her notebook. From the top of her head, she started to write. The hardest thing I've ever done is believe in something no one else could see, not even the people meant to guide me. When I told my teacher I wanted to go to Harvard, she laughed. But her laughter didn't kill my dream. It made me fight for it. 2 hours later, the first draft of her essay sat on the page. Imperfect. Raw. Honest. Kira reread it out loud. Her voice trembled near the end, but she didn't stop. From the hallway, her mother listened without saying a word. When Kira finished, she closed the laptop and exhaled like she'd just crossed a finish line. She felt lighter. She felt real. Before going to bed, she stopped by the hallway shelf where a small wooden box sat, her father's keepsake box. Her mother kept it there as a quiet reminder of who they came from. She opened it carefully. Inside were some old photos, a library card with his faded name, and a letter, one Marcus had written to Kira a week before he died. She unfolded it, the paper soft from years of unfolding and refolding. Kira. You're too young to understand all this now, but I hope one day you read this and remember that your dreams are not random. They're placed inside you for a reason. And no matter what the world says, or how loud the noise gets, promise me one thing. Never shrink. Because you, baby girl, were born to take up space. Her eyes burned with unshed tears. She folded the letter back and whispered, I promise. The submit button stared back at Kira like a dare. She had spent the weekend refining her application, tweaking sentence structure, checking for grammar slips, trimming unnecessary words while keeping her voice intact. Olivia had proofread it twice. Her mom had read it once and cried silently the whole way through, then simply said, It's perfect. Now it was Monday morning. Her room smelled like peppermint lotion and the faint smoke from the candle she'd burned the night before. The sun streamed through the window in soft gold. She hovered the mouse over the button, her hand trembling slightly. This wasn't just an application. It was a declaration. I am here. I am worthy. I am not asking. I am taking up space. Click. Just like that, it was done. She exhaled hard, leaned back in her chair, and stared at the screen for a few seconds longer, just to be sure it was real. It was. Kira Jenkins had officially applied to the Harvard Pre-College Summer Program. Word spread fast. By midweek, a copy of her essay had somehow made its way to Coach Davis, then to Mr. Jacobs, the AP history teacher, and eventually even to the assistant principal. Kira didn't know how. Maybe Olivia shared it. Maybe someone from the faculty did. All she knew was that by Thursday, people were looking at her differently. Some with curiosity. Some with admiration. And some, with suspicion. Yo, Jenkins, a guy from her chemistry class said as he passed her in the hall, Harvard, huh? Big dreams. His voice wasn't mocking, but it wasn't supportive either. It was laced with that familiar tone, "Who do you think you are?" Kira just nodded and kept walking. In English class, Miss Thornton made a point of not looking in her direction. She taught the entire hour without acknowledging Kira once, even when she raised her hand. But Kira didn't care. She was glowing from within. Her inbox pinged during lunch. She opened her phone to find an email from the Harvard pre-college program. Her heart skipped. It wasn't an acceptance. Not yet. Just a confirmation, "Your application has been received and is under review." But still, seeing the Harvard letterhead, even in email form, made her heart leap. She wanted to scream. Olivia grabbed her tray and sat beside her. "You look like someone just proposed." "I got the confirmation email." "Oh, it's happening," Olivia grinned. "The prophecy is unfolding." Kira laughed, then leaned in. "Hey, do you think I should show Miss Thornton the essay? You know, just to let her know I'm serious." Olivia looked at her like she'd suggested skydiving without a parachute. "Are you trying to give that woman a heart attack?" "I'm not trying to be petty. I just want her to understand." "Kira," Olivia said gently, "she doesn't want to understand. People like her don't want to be proven wrong. They want to be comfortable." Kira nodded slowly. She understood. But still, something inside her wanted to be seen. Not just by her friends, or her family, but by the very people who doubted her. That evening, back at home, Kira sat on the edge of her bed scrolling through the Harvard program website again. There was a tab labeled, "Meet the Faculty." She clicked it and skimmed through a few bios before something caught her eye. Dean Samuel Lawrence. Dean of Pre-College Programs, Harvard University. Former civil rights attorney. Advocate for educational equity. He was a tall, brown-skinned man in his 50s with salt and pepper hair and the kind of eyes that looked like they'd seen too much, but still held hope. She clicked on his profile. The first line of his welcome message read, "At Harvard, we're not just looking for the best scores, we're looking for the boldest voices." Kira stared at that sentence for a long time. It was like he had written it just for her. The next morning, she printed out a copy of her essay. She wasn't sure why. Maybe to keep for herself. Maybe to hang on her wall. Or maybe, just maybe, to give it to Miss Thornton after all. She tucked it carefully into a folder and slipped it into her backpack. But life has a funny way of flipping the script. Just after second period, an announcement came over the loudspeaker. Would Kira Jenkins please report to the main office? Heads turned. Olivia leaned across the desk, wide-eyed. You in trouble? Kira blinked. I don't think so. She stood up slowly, heart pounding, and walked out of the classroom as every eye in the room followed her. When she reached the main office, the secretary looked up and smiled. Mr. Landry wants to see you. Just go on back. Mr. Landry was the assistant principal. He was known for being firm but fair. She knocked on his office door and stepped inside. To her surprise, someone else was sitting in the chair next to him. A tall, sharply dressed black man in a gray wool coat. He stood as she entered, smiling warmly. Kira Jenkins, he asked. She nodded slowly. He extended his hand. Dean Samuel Lawrence. From Harvard. Her mouth dropped open. I happened to be in town for a conference, he said, and I asked to stop by and meet you in person. I read your essay. Kira could barely find her voice. You read it? He nodded. More than once. It was passed along to me by a former student of mine. Turns out, your story is making its rounds in more places than you know. She stood frozen. This couldn't be real. I don't usually do this, he said, lowering his voice to a more personal tone, but I wanted you to hear it from me, your voice matters. And there's a space for you, at Harvard, and beyond. If you're still interested, I'd love to personally recommend your application to the summer program committee. Kira felt her eyes sting. Yes, she whispered, barely holding back tears. I'm very interested. Dean Lawrence smiled. Then let's make it happen. Outside the office, Olivia was waiting near the lockers. Kira walked toward her in a daze. What happened? Why'd they call you down? Kira didn't speak right away. She reached into her bag and pulled out the folder. She handed Olivia the essay copy, still inside. He read it. Who? Kira just smiled. The dean of Harvard. By the next morning, it felt like the entire school knew. In the cafeteria, heads turned when Kira walked in. People whispered. Some smiled. Others just stared, curious but unsure. The energy was different, electric, buzzing, like the school itself was holding its breath. Kira slid into the seat next to Olivia, her tray untouched. You're a legend now, Olivia said with a grin. They're calling you the Harvard girl. Kira winced. Please don't say that. Too late. You've been immortalized. Might as well get merch. Did someone leak it or something? Olivia raised a brow. You had a one-on-one with a Harvard dean in the school office. People saw. People talk. This place hasn't had news that big since Principal Martin got caught dancing on TikTok. Kira put her face in her hands. I didn't want all this attention. Yes, you did, Olivia teased. And also, you earned it. But deep down, Kira wasn't sure how to feel. The pride, the excitement, they were real. But so was the pressure. And the part of her that still felt like she didn't quite belong. By fourth period, the buzz had reached full volume. Coach Davis gave her a proud nod as she passed him in the hallway. Even students she barely spoke to, like Rashad from the track team and Emily from orchestra, stopped to say, congrats, or, that's crazy impressive, or, you're inspiring, for real. Kira smiled and thanked them, but the voice in the back of her mind was louder than all of theirs. What happens if I don't get in? But it wasn't just students talking. In the teacher's lounge, Miss Thornton stirred her tea slowly while Miss Hanley, the art teacher, chatted animatedly nearby. You hear about Kira Jenkins? Hanley said. Met the dean of Harvard right in the office yesterday. Can you believe that? Ms. Thornton didn't respond. She applied to the summer program, Hanley went on, unbothered by the silence. Her essay's making the rounds. Coach Davis said it's one of the best he's ever read. Said it's already got faculty backing. Thornton finally looked up. She's a bright student, she said curtly. Hanley blinked. Bright? She's on fire. That girl's going places. Thornton nodded once, but her jaw tightened. Inside, something twisted, pride. Embarrassment. Resentment. She wasn't sure. But part of her couldn't stop replaying the moment Kira had spoken with such confidence in her class, and how she had laughed. Now that laughter echoed differently. That afternoon, Kira was called into Mr. Landry's office again. This time, she wasn't alone. Miss Thornton was already sitting there. Kira hesitated at the door. Come in, Kira, Mr. Landry said warmly. She stepped inside slowly, her eyes flicking between them. We just wanted to talk, he said. Nothing formal. I thought it might be good to clear the air. Miss Thornton adjusted her cardigan. Her expression was unreadable. Kira, she began, voice softer than usual, I wanted to say congratulations. Your meeting yesterday, it was, unexpected. But impressive. Kira said nothing. She wasn't sure where this was going. I also wanted to apologize, Thornton continued. If I made you feel small or dismissed. That wasn't my intention. Kira raised her eyebrows slightly. Was this really happening? Thornton cleared her throat. I've been a teacher for almost 20 years. I've seen students come and go, and I've learned that ambition often comes in different forms. But sometimes, I forget to make room for the kind I don't expect. There it was. The closest thing to an admission she'd probably ever offer. Kira nodded slowly. I appreciate that, she said. But it wasn't about expectation. It was about respect. I deserved that, too. There was a pause. Thornton looked down, then back up. You're right, she said quietly. Mr. Landry smiled. Well said, both of you. Kira stood. Can I go now? Yes, Thornton said. And, good luck. I mean it. As Kira walked out, her pulse still thudding, she felt a shift, not just in the air, but inside herself. This wasn't about proving Ms. Thornton wrong anymore. It was about proving herself right. At home that night, her mom was on the phone with Miss Delilah, walking in slow circles around the living room. That's what I said, Shayla was saying. A whole dean flew across the city to meet her. Harvard, Delilah. You think Marcus would believe that? Kira walked in and Shayla covered the receiver. You okay, baby? Yeah, Kira said. Just, everything feels really real now. Shayla smiled. It is real. Kira nodded, then walked to her room. She sat at her desk and opened a fresh page in her notebook. At the top, she wrote. The moment you stop waiting for permission is the moment the world starts paying attention. She paused. Then, just underneath, she added. Next goal, a full scholarship. The library was quiet, peaceful in a way that felt sacred. It was Saturday morning, and the building was nearly empty. Dusty rays of sunlight filtered through the tall windows, lighting up the shelves like golden spotlights. Kira moved slowly down the aisles, fingertips grazing book spines. She wasn't looking for anything in particular. She just wanted to be close to the space her father had once called his second home. The Jefferson Heights Public Library had been his refuge. Her mom had told her stories, how Marcus Jenkins would lose hours inside this building, tucked in the history section or writing in the margins of spiral-bound notebooks. He didn't just read books, he breathed them. She stopped in the local history section. There, tucked between a book on civil rights in the South and a worn city atlas, was a binder labeled Community Archives, Oral Histories of Jefferson Heights. Kira pulled it down, settled into a corner chair, and flipped it open. Inside were typed interviews, scanned photos, and handwritten notes from residents over the decades. And there, on the third page, was his name. Marcus Jenkins. Recorded 2007, Books Were My Resistance. She froze. Her breath caught. She leaned in and began to read. My family didn't have much. But we had voices. And books. I used to sit right over there, by the window, and read Baldwin like it was gospel. To me, learning wasn't about getting a job or a degree. It was about liberation. Kira swallowed hard. Her father's words wrapped around her like armor. I knew I wouldn't live long enough to change the whole system. But if I could raise a daughter who believed she could, then that'd be enough. Her fingers trembled. He hadn't just believed in change, he'd bet his legacy on her. Later that afternoon, she returned home clutching a copy of the interview the librarian had kindly printed out. She showed it to her mom, who stared at it for a long moment before saying quietly, he'd be so proud of you. He always knew you'd carry his light further than he ever could. Kira sat down on the couch. Do you think I'm doing too much? Like, what if this Harvard thing doesn't work out? Her mom looked at her. You think your father would have stopped reading Baldwin because someone said no? She asked. Kira smiled. No, she admitted. Exactly. The point isn't Harvard, baby. The point is you're dreaming loud. That's something they can't take from you. That evening, as Kira scrolled through her emails again, she noticed one she hadn't opened yet. The subject line read, Legacy Scholar Nomination, Harvard Pre-College Program. She sat bolt upright. Her hands shook slightly as she opened the email. Dear Ms. Jenkins, you have been nominated by Dean Samuel Lawrence for the Legacy Scholars Fellowship. This opportunity is offered to exceptional applicants who demonstrate academic promise and a strong commitment to community growth and leadership. As part of the selection process, we invite you to write a follow-up essay, How has your past shaped your purpose? Her eyes widened. This wasn't just another form. It was a second chance to speak, not just about her ambition, but about her roots. The next morning, she returned to her desk with a fresh notebook. She knew exactly what she wanted to say. She began. I didn't grow up with ivy-covered buildings or generations of legacy behind me. What I inherited was a different kind of power, a legacy of resilience, born in the stacks of a public library and in the margins of used books passed down from my father. He used to say that books were his resistance. That every page he read was an act of defiance. And now, I write not just for myself, but for him. For my mother. For every kid who's ever been told to shrink. She wrote into the evening, the words flowing like music she'd waited her whole life to hear. On Monday, she printed it out and brought it to school. As she walked through the halls, something had changed. She was no longer just Harvard girl. She was something else now. She was a symbol. And symbols couldn't afford to doubt themselves. At lunch, Coach Davis pulled her aside. Got your essay, he said, holding the printed copy. You've got fire, Jenkins. I sent it to a colleague of mine who works admissions at Columbia. Hope that's okay. Her eyes widened. Seriously? He nodded. I'm telling you now, doors are opening. You just keep walking. That afternoon, something else happened. As Kira packed her bag after 7th period, Ms. Thornton approached her desk. May I read it? She asked. Kira hesitated. You mean, the new one? Ms. Thornton nodded. Yes. I heard about the nomination. I'd like to see what everyone's talking about. Kira slowly pulled a folded copy from her binder. Sure, she said, handing it over. Ms. Thornton held the pages gently, like they might burn if she wasn't careful. And for the first time in a long while, her face softened. I'll return it tomorrow, she said. Kira nodded once. Take your time. That night, Kira stood by the window in her room, looking out at the city lights. She was no longer trying to outrun doubt. She was chasing legacy. And the road ahead, wherever it led, finally felt like hers. Kira adjusted the blazer her mom had lent her, navy blue, a little big in the shoulders, and stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror of Jefferson Heights High. Her hair was pulled into a clean twist out, and she wore her dad's old watch for good luck. A tiny pin on her lapel read, Bold Voices, Big Futures, the theme of today's district-wide honors scholar luncheon. She didn't feel bold. She felt like an imposter wearing grown-up clothes. But as her mom had said that morning, handing her a to-go cup of tea, baby, sometimes you gotta dress like the room already belongs to you. Eventually, it will. The luncheon was hosted at Briarfield Academy, a private school across town with columns out front and a campus that looked like it was plucked from a movie set. The kind of place where students had monogrammed blazers and parents with country club memberships. As Kira stepped into the sunlit event hall, she immediately felt the weight of it. Everything was pristine, linen tablecloths, gold-plated name cards, fresh flowers at each table. The students around her were already deep in conversation about internships, coding camps, and college visits to Stanford and Yale. She scanned the room until she found her name, Kira Jenkins, Jefferson Heights High School. She took her seat at a table with 5 other students. Most had come from elite prep schools. A girl next to her with strawberry blonde curls and a soft New England accent leaned in. "Hi, I'm Charlotte. Grover Hill Prep. You?" "Kiera. Jefferson Heights." Charlotte smiled. "Oh. Are you the Harvard girl?" Kiera blinked. "I guess. I read your essay," Charlotte said brightly. "Dean Lawrence shared it during our writing seminar last week. It was amazing. You made, like, half the room cry." Kiera's eyes widened. "He shared it?" "Totally. Said it reminded him why he started the Legacy Scholars Initiative in the first place." Kiera barely had time to process that when a tall boy across the table chimed in. "So, are you, like, confirmed for the program?" "I was nominated," Kiera said carefully. "Still waiting to hear back." He gave her a short nod. "Well, either way, it's cool someone from a public school's making waves." There was no venom in his voice. But it still stung a little, someone from a public school. Kiera straightened in her seat. As the luncheon began, a panel of speakers took the stage, school administrators, community leaders, and finally, Dean Samuel Lawrence himself. When he stepped up to the podium, the room quieted instantly. "Thank you all for being here," he said, his deep voice steady. "You are the brightest minds in the district. But brilliance alone isn't what will carry you forward. What matters most is how you use your seat at the table, whether you widen the table or hoard the space." Kiera leaned in, every word hitting deeper than the last. "In rooms like these," Dean Lawrence continued, "some of you may feel like you were born to belong here. And others," his eyes scanned the crowd, pausing ever so slightly on her, "may feel like you snuck in through a side door." Kiera swallowed hard. "But let me be clear, the door didn't open for you. It opened because of you. And your job now is to keep it open for someone else." After the panel, students were invited to mingle. Kiera found herself in a conversation circle with Charlotte and two other students who immediately launched into a debate about legacy admissions and meritocracy. "Honestly," said one boy in a gray cashmere vest, "I think this obsession with diversity is watering down standards. Shouldn't we just pick the best students?" Kiera felt her stomach twist. Charlotte tried to gently redirect. "But how do you define best? Some students don't have the same access." "That's not our fault," the boy shrugged. "It's not personal. It's just about results." Kiera stepped in. "Access is personal," she said, her voice calm but firm. "And if the system doesn't acknowledge that, then it's not measuring merit, it's measuring privilege." The group went quiet. Then Charlotte smiled. "Well said." The boy looked like he wanted to argue but turned away. Kiera exhaled. Maybe she didn't have the same vocabulary as them. Maybe she hadn't taken debate club or AP Econ. But she had lived the truth. And in that moment, it was enough. Later that day, as students boarded the buses, Charlotte caught up with her. "Hey," she said. "That was gutsy. What you said." Kiera shrugged. "I wasn't trying to start something." "No, you started something important." She paused. "It's weird, right? How rooms like that can make you forget how smart you are." Kiera nodded slowly. "I used to think I had to become someone else to fit in. And now? I think, maybe I just need to stay loud enough to be heard as myself." Charlotte grinned. "I hope we both get in." "Me too." That night, Kiera sat on her bed and opened a fresh journal page. At the top, she wrote, "They didn't give me a seat. I pulled up my own chair." She taped her name card from the luncheon beside it. A reminder. Not just of where she was going, but of how far she'd already come. Kiera was scrolling through her phone after school, the weight of the last few days of excitement starting to settle. The lunch with Dean Lawrence, the nods of approval from her peers, the chance to share her story, all of it had felt like a whirlwind. It was all good. Too good, maybe. She paused for a moment, gazing at the photo from the Honors Scholar luncheon that had been posted on the school's Facebook page. She was smiling, a picture of confidence. Dean Lawrence was standing next to her, his hand placed casually on her shoulder. The caption read, "Local student Kira Jenkins shines at Briarfield Academy Honors Luncheon, nominated for Harvard's prestigious Legacy Scholars Program. A rising star in Jefferson Heights." She clicked like on the post, and her finger hovered over the screen, ready to share it to her own feed when a notification popped up. One new message. The username was unfamiliar. Curious, Kira opened it. At Blaze Off Truth. "So what does it feel like to be the token diversity pick? Nice of Harvard to let you in so they can look good, huh? Don't you think you should leave the real opportunities for people who actually earned it?" Kira's stomach sank. Her fingers hovered over the screen, uncertainty creeping in. She reread the message, and her first instinct was to ignore it. It was just some random troll, right? But then another notification popped up. 2 new messages. At Cassandra Harper. "Kira Jenkins, huh? How much do you think your public school struggles are worth in the grand scheme of things? I've worked my ass off for years, and no one's calling me a Harvard scholar. Maybe it's about time we stop pretending that being different automatically makes you exceptional." Kira sat back in her chair, her hands cold. The next message came through like a punch in the gut. At Jordan Bishop. "Nothing like making it to the top by playing the race card. If it wasn't for diversity quotas, you'd still be stuck in the same place everyone else in your neighborhood is." Her heart pounded in her chest. At first, Kira tried to brush it off. After all, it was just a few random people hiding behind their screens. But the more she thought about it, the more it stung. What if they were right? What if all of this, everything she was working toward, wasn't truly earned? What if she really was just a token, some kind of checkbox they had to fill for the sake of appearances? The next day at school, Kira could feel the eyes on her as soon as she stepped into the hall. Whispers buzzed around her, some friendly, some uncertain, others laced with the kind of judgment she hadn't quite expected. At lunch, she sat down at her usual table with Coach Davis and some of the other team members. Her phone buzzed again. She was afraid to look at it but knew she had to. This time, it was a comment on her post from someone she recognized, Ms. Thornton. At Ms. Thornton. "I hope you understand that being different doesn't automatically make you special. It takes more than just showing up to a table to deserve a seat. Real success doesn't come with a tag or a nomination, it comes from sweat and sacrifice. Hope you've earned it." Kira felt her throat close up. She put the phone down, trying to focus on the conversation at the table, but the words lingered in her mind. Later that afternoon, after practice, Kira wandered through the halls alone. She wasn't sure where she was going, she just needed a moment to breathe. She ended up outside near the library, standing in the soft afternoon sunlight. That's when her phone buzzed again. It was a text from Charlotte. "Charlotte. I saw the comments. Don't listen to them. They're just scared because you're doing what they never could. You're changing the game, Kira. And that scares them. Don't let them get to you. You've got this." Kira exhaled slowly. She knew Charlotte meant well, but the sting of those words from Miss Thornton, from the strangers online, was like an open wound she couldn't stop picking at. She scrolled through her feed again, almost obsessively, staring at the comments. Some of them were supportive, offering encouragement. Others, not so much. The idea that she was being held up as something she wasn't, it made her feel small. And she hated that feeling. As she stood there, trying to shake off the negativity, she was joined by a familiar voice. "You okay?" It was Coach Davis, his voice soft but concerned. "I don't know," Kira said, feeling the weight of her words. "I thought this was supposed to feel different. Like, being noticed by people who've made it, you know. But now I just feel like I'm a part of some big game I don't understand. He nodded, leaning against the wall next to her. It's not easy. When you start getting attention, it's like people want to define you for their own reasons. They want you to be a story they can control. I didn't ask for any of this, Kira said quietly, her voice cracking. I didn't ask to be a symbol. I just wanted to go to school and do my best. Sometimes, Coach said, you don't get to choose how people see you. But you can always choose who you want to be. That's where the real fight is. Later that evening, Kira was alone in her room, staring at her journal. She didn't want to go back online, didn't want to read any more comments. But she needed to write. She needed to clear her head. She picked up the pen and began. They don't get to define me. I define me. This story isn't over. Not even close. They can't steal my truth, no matter how hard they try. Because I'm not just here to prove that I belong. I'm here to make room for the next person who's been told they don't. As she closed the notebook, Kira realized something. Her journey was never going to be about fitting into someone else's narrative. It was about owning her own, no matter how many cracks appeared in the image along the way. The next few days felt like a blur of emotions for Kira. The comments from strangers, the judgment from people she thought were allies, and the weight of her nomination to Harvard all seemed to collapse into a heavy fog around her. Every time she picked up her phone, it was like opening a door to another round of criticism, confusion, or even worse, silence. But amid it all, something unexpected happened. Something she hadn't anticipated, not at this point in her journey. It started with a simple message from Ms. Lee, one of the teachers at Jefferson Heights who had been particularly supportive of Kira from the beginning. Ms. Lee. Hey Kira, just wanted to check in. I know things have been a little rough lately, but I've been hearing some powerful things from students around the school. You're inspiring people without even knowing it. Keep pushing. At first, Kira wasn't sure how to respond. She didn't feel particularly inspiring at that moment, just tired. Tired of defending herself, tired of constantly feeling like she had to explain why she belonged. But something in Ms. Lee's words stuck with her. That afternoon, after school, Kira found herself in the library, sitting at one of the corner tables, flipping through a book she didn't really care about. Her mind was elsewhere, still trying to process everything, to figure out what she was supposed to do next. Then she saw him. A shy, lanky boy from her math class named Omar walked by the table. He hesitated, then approached her. Kira, he said quietly, his hands stuffed in the pockets of his hoodie. Can I talk to you for a second? Kira looked up, surprised. She didn't really know him well, he was one of those quiet kids who kept to himself. But there was something in his eyes that made her set down the book. Sure, what's up? She asked, her voice gentle. Omar looked around the library as if he wasn't sure where to begin. He cleared his throat. I saw the stuff online. The comments. The hate. And I just wanted to say. I think it's messed up. Kira raised an eyebrow. You think so? Yeah, he nodded. I know it's probably hard to ignore all that noise. But I wanted to say that you're not just a diversity pick. You're smart. You deserve to be there. I don't know why people think they can just tear you down. Her breath caught in her throat. She wasn't used to hearing that kind of validation, especially not from someone like Omar, who had always seemed so distant. It means a lot that you're saying that, Kira said, her voice soft. But, it doesn't really feel that way right now, you know. I get it, Omar said, shifting nervously. I just wanted you to know that your story, it's made me think. Like, I don't have the same experiences as you, but I've been feeling a lot of pressure too, like, maybe I'm not good enough for the college I want. But seeing you stand up for yourself, despite everything, it made me realize I don't have to hide. Kira stared at him for a moment, surprised. "You're not hiding," she said softly. "You're just figuring it out." "I'm still figuring it out too." Omar smiled, then hesitated. "Thanks. I think I'm going to start looking into programs, maybe apply to a few schools. Just, take a chance." Her heart warmed. This was the ripple effect she hadn't expected, the impact she didn't know she was having. She was inspiring others, even if she was still learning how to inspire herself. Later that evening, Kira's phone buzzed again. It was another message from Charlotte. "Charlotte. You won't believe this, but I've been getting messages from people in our school too. Everyone's talking about how much your story resonates with them. And guess what? A few of the girls in our class have started a study group, and they're asking if you'd come by to help out." Kira's eyes widened. She wasn't sure what to make of it. Study groups weren't usually her thing, and she didn't know how much she could contribute. But the idea that people were reaching out to her, asking for her guidance, it felt different. After thinking for a moment, she typed back. "Kira. Sure, I'll come by. Let me know the details." The next morning, when she walked into school, she noticed a shift. There was a buzz in the air, but it wasn't the same kind of whispering she'd heard before. This time, it was something else. People were talking about study sessions, about preparing for college applications, and some were even mentioning Kira by name, without any hesitation or judgment. In her first class, Miss Thornton, who had made those harsh comments about playing the race card, surprised her. Instead of avoiding eye contact or dismissing her, Miss Thornton smiled and gave Kira a nod of acknowledgement. "Ms. Jenkins," she said, as if the words had some weight behind them, "I've heard you're leading a study session for the seniors. Good luck with that. It's an excellent initiative." Kira blinked, unsure whether she had just imagined it. But she smiled back, a feeling of quiet pride swelling in her chest. By the time the weekend rolled around, Kira found herself sitting with a group of girls she hadn't known very well before, poring over SAT prep books and discussing essays. The room was filled with laughter and encouragement, and for the first time in a long while, Kira felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. She wasn't an outsider anymore. She was part of something. As the session ended, one of the girls, Ava, who had been particularly shy, turned to Kira. "I just wanted to thank you," she said, her voice soft but sincere. "You really helped me understand how to talk about my story in my essay. I didn't think anyone cared about where I came from." Kira smiled. "Everyone's story matters. And the more you speak up, the more people will listen." Ava nodded, her eyes bright. "Yeah, you're right." As Kira left the study session that day, she felt a quiet sense of victory. Not because she had won anything, but because she had managed to push through the doubts, the fears, and the criticism to create something bigger than herself, a space where people could see their own worth, just like she was beginning to see hers. She hadn't just earned a place at the table. She had started building a new table altogether. The following weeks brought a wave of change. Kira was no longer just the girl nominated for the Harvard Legacy Scholars Program. She had become a symbol of hope for many students at Jefferson Heights. Every time she walked through the school hallways, people greeted her with smiles and nods of respect. She wasn't just the girl with the potential anymore, she was the girl who made it happen. But with this newfound status came an unexpected weight. It was one thing to be seen as capable, it was another to be expected to be perfect. And Kira felt the pressure mounting with every passing day. One day after school, while she was preparing for another study group session with the seniors, she got a notification that would change everything. "Harvard admissions, important update regarding your application." Kira's heart skipped a beat as she opened the email. It was a standard update, just letting her know that her application had been reviewed and that she was one of the finalists being considered for the Legacy Scholars Program. But at the bottom of the email, a line caught her eye. Due to the competitive nature of this year's applicants, we are also considering other candidates who have shown remarkable achievements in leadership and academic excellence. One of these applicants, Evan Richards, has particularly caught our attention. We encourage you to continue your preparation and remain engaged with us as we finalize our decisions. Kira stared at the screen, her hands shaking. Evan Richards. She had heard that name before. He was a junior from Briarfield Academy who had been racking up achievements since middle school, class president, debate champion, science fair winner, and now, a serious contender for the Legacy Scholars Program. As the email continued to list Evan's accomplishments, Kira felt a pang of doubt. She had always worked hard, had always been determined, but she wasn't sure if she could compete with someone who had every award and recognition handed to him on a silver platter. She had faced her fair share of struggles, why should it now feel like they were working against her? That evening, Kira didn't feel like talking to anyone. She shut herself in her room, staring at the glowing screen of her phone, scrolling through Evan's achievements online. Every post, every award, every mention, it seemed to scream perfect. But as the hours passed, something inside Kira shifted. The doubt, the uncertainty, the feeling that she wasn't enough, all of it started to solidify into something else, a challenge. Evan's success wasn't a threat. It was an opportunity. If she could see it that way, then she wasn't just competing for a scholarship. She was competing for something far bigger, a chance to prove that her story, her background, her struggles, they were just as valuable as any prestigious award or accolade. The next day, when Kira met with her study group, her mind was racing. She tried to focus on helping the students work through their college essays, but her thoughts kept drifting to the email. How could she focus on her peers' work when her own future felt uncertain? "Hey, Kira, you alright?" It was Ava, the girl who had been so shy just a few weeks ago. She caught Kira's distracted gaze and smiled gently. "You've been quiet today. You're usually the one giving all the motivational talks, remember?" Kira sighed, rubbing the back of her neck. "Yeah, I don't know. I got some news about the Harvard scholarship, and it's got me questioning everything." Ava raised an eyebrow. "The scholarship? But you're one of the front runners. You've got this in the bag." "I thought I did," Kira said, her voice shaking. "But now I found out who I'm competing against. His name's Evan Richards, and he's like, perfect. Debate champion, science genius, class president. It's like, everything I've done just doesn't match up." Ava reached over and placed a hand on Kira's arm. "You can't compare yourself to him, Kira. Everyone has their own path. You don't know his story, just like he doesn't know yours." Kira bit her lip, feeling a wave of gratitude for Ava's kindness. "I guess you're right," she said, looking at her phone again. "It just feels like the bar keeps getting higher, and I'm not sure I can keep up." "Why not?" Ava said, raising her eyebrows. "You're more than just your grades or your awards. You're a person, Kira. A person who's already inspired so many people at this school, including me." Kira smiled, the weight in her chest lightening a little. "Thanks, Ava. That means a lot to me." That night, after everyone had gone home and the study group had ended, Kira sat down at her desk, taking a deep breath. The email from Harvard was still on her mind, but now it no longer felt like a roadblock. It felt like a challenge. The kind of challenge she thrived on. She opened her journal and began to write. "I've always had to work harder. I've always had to prove myself more than others. But maybe that's not such a bad thing. Maybe it's what's going to push me forward when I'm ready to give up. I'm not just competing for a scholarship. I'm competing for my future. And I'm going to give everything I've got to make it happen. Because I deserve it." Kira stood up from her desk and walked over to the window. The sun was setting, casting a warm, golden light over the neighborhood. It was peaceful, and for the first time in a while, Kira felt a sense of calm. She wasn't sure what would happen with Harvard. She wasn't sure if she would win the scholarship or if Evan Richards would get it instead. But one thing was clear, she was going to give everything she had. And that, Kira realized, was enough. The next morning, as she walked into school, there was a new sense of determination in her step. She wasn't just going to compete with Evan Richards. She was going to create her own path, one that was uniquely hers. As she entered the main hallway, a few of the younger students waved at her, and Kira gave them a nod. She had inspired them, yes, but now, she realized, she was also inspiring herself. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The days seemed to stretch endlessly between the final application deadline and the moment when Harvard would make its decision. Kira found herself in a constant state of anticipation, unable to focus on anything for long periods of time. The pressure of waiting for the scholarship announcement became a quiet, gnawing presence in the back of her mind. She felt like she was walking on a tightrope, balancing the hope of getting in with the fear of rejection. Every time she sat down to study or work on her essays, she kept hearing that one sentence from the Harvard email, due to the competitive nature of this year's applicants. It was like an anchor that kept her from fully committing to her work, leaving her distracted and anxious. Still, she kept pushing through. She had no choice but to keep going. The school's final stretch before graduation felt like a blur of activity. Prom, graduation ceremonies, year-end celebrations, it was as if everything was building to one climactic moment. But for Kira, every event seemed to remind her of the uncertainty that still hung over her, the waiting. She couldn't avoid it anymore. It wasn't just the scholarship, it was her future. Everything she had worked for, all the sacrifices, all the late night studying and pushing through her doubts, had been leading to this moment. One Thursday afternoon, as Kira was sitting in the cafeteria for a quick lunch before her next study session, Charlotte slid into the seat across from her. Charlotte had been her friend and support throughout this entire process, always pushing her to keep going, to keep believing in herself. But today, there was something different in Charlotte's eyes, something more serious. "You've been distant lately," Charlotte said, setting down her lunch tray. "I know you're stressed about Harvard, but you've been shutting everyone out. You're not even answering your texts as quickly anymore." Kira sighed, pushing her sandwich around on her plate. I don't know what to do anymore. The email, the competition. It's all becoming too much. I keep thinking I'm not good enough, like maybe I've already lost." Charlotte's eyes softened, and she reached out, placing a hand gently on Kira's. "Kira, you're not defined by a scholarship. You're defined by the strength and courage you've shown. No matter what happens with Harvard, you've already proven that you're more than capable of achieving great things. Don't let this one moment define everything." Kira met her gaze, feeling a lump form in her throat. "I don't know if I can handle the rejection, Charlotte. I've worked so hard, and all I want is a chance to prove myself. To prove that I belong." "I know," Charlotte said quietly. "But you've already proven that, Kira. You belong. And I'm so proud of you." Kira smiled weakly, but it was the first time in a while that she felt the weight of the tension in her chest loosen, even just a little. Charlotte was right. She had already proven so much, not just to others, but to herself. "I've been so focused on the what-ifs that I forgot about the what now," Kira said. "I've done everything I can. And if I don't get the scholarship, then I'll keep moving forward." "That's the spirit," Charlotte grinned. "Besides, there are so many other opportunities out there for you. Harvard is just one of them." The next few days were a whirlwind. Kira continued her routine, attending classes, helping her classmates, and even participating in a community service project that the school had organized for the seniors. But her mind was never far from the scholarship decision. Every phone buzz, every email notification, made her heart skip a beat. Was it today? Then, one morning, she opened her inbox to find an email from Harvard. Her stomach flipped, and her hands felt cold as she clicked open the message. Harvard University, Admissions Update. Subject, Your application to the Legacy Scholars Program. She took a deep breath and began reading. Dear Kira Jenkins, we are pleased to inform you that after thorough review, we have selected you as a recipient of the Legacy Scholars Program. Your achievements, personal journey, and dedication have made a profound impact on our admissions committee. We believe you embody the values that Harvard strives to uphold, and we are excited to offer you a place in the incoming class. Congratulations on your acceptance. The words blurred before her eyes. She had to read the email again just to process it. She got in. She was accepted. Kira's hand trembled as she held her phone. She couldn't believe it. After all the struggle, the fear, the doubts, she had done it. She had made it. Tears began to well in her eyes as she stared at the screen, feeling an overwhelming sense of relief, disbelief, and pride all at once. The phone buzzed again in her hand, and this time, it was a message from Charlotte. Charlotte. Kira. I saw the email. Oh my gosh. I knew you could do it. I'm so proud of you. This is just the beginning. Kira laughed through her tears and typed back quickly. Kira. I can't believe it. I actually did it. Charlotte's reply came almost instantly. Charlotte. You did it, girl. You earned it. And you know what? The best part? You're going to show everyone that they can do it too. You've already changed so many lives, Kira. Now, you get to change your own. Harvard is just the start. I'm so proud of you. Now go celebrate. Kira leaned back in her chair, staring out the window. For a moment, she simply let the silence wash over her. The world felt different now. She felt different. She had done it, not just for the scholarship, but for every time someone had doubted her, for every time she had doubted herself. She had proven that her dreams were worth fighting for. And now, she was going to live them. Later that evening, Kira stood in front of her mirror, looking at herself as if seeing her reflection for the first time. There was a new confidence in her gaze, a new understanding that the journey was just as important as the destination. She had fought for this moment, and now she had the future she had always dreamed of. Her phone buzzed again, and this time it was her mom. Mom. Kira, I'm so proud of you, baby. I always knew you were capable of great things. Keep reaching for the stars. You've earned it. Kira smiled and texted back, I did it, Mom. Harvard accepted me. As the evening settled into night, Kira felt a deep sense of peace. The waiting was over. The hard work, the sacrifice, the moments of doubt, they had all led her to this point. And now, Kira Jenkins was ready for the next chapter of her life. The first week at Harvard was a blur of introductions, orientations, and endless forms. Kira couldn't help but feel both excited and overwhelmed. She was finally here, at the place she had dreamed about for so long. Yet, even though it felt like a dream come true, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking in unfamiliar territory, surrounded by students who seemed so much more prepared, polished, and experienced than she was. She had arrived on campus a few days before the semester officially started, giving her some time to settle in and explore. The campus was everything she had imagined, classic red brick buildings, sprawling green lawns, and students rushing between classes, all with an air of purpose. It was easy to feel small here, like just another face in the crowd. And yet, she was determined to remind herself that she belonged. Her dorm room was simple but comfortable. She had a roommate, Melissa, who was from California and majoring in environmental science. Melissa was friendly and talkative, a perfect match for Kira's quieter, more reflective nature. They bonded over late-night conversations about their hometowns, their ambitions, and, of course, the pressure of being freshmen at Harvard. But it wasn't just the academic rigor that was intimidating. It was the social dynamics. Kira was used to being the standout in her school back home, popular, well-liked, and often the person others turned to for guidance. But here, at Harvard, no one knew her. And for the first time in a long time, Kira felt like she was just another face in a sea of incredibly talented individuals. One day, a week into the semester, Kira found herself in the dining hall, grabbing a quick lunch between classes. The cafeteria was buzzing with students, some in groups, some sitting alone, all with that focused, determined look that Kira had come to associate with the Ivy League. As she picked up her tray of food and scanned the room for a place to sit, she caught sight of someone who instantly stood out, a tall, confident-looking guy sitting with a group of students at a corner table. His name flashed in Kira's mind almost immediately, Evan Richards. Kira's heart skipped a beat. She had seen him around campus a few times, but they had never spoken. He was the guy everyone talked about, the one with all the awards, the perfect resume, the golden boy. Kira hesitated for a moment, then made her way to an empty table at the other side of the room. She couldn't help but glance back at Evan. He was laughing with his friends, his smile wide and genuine. The image stung for some reason she couldn't quite place. She had worked so hard to get here, yet it felt like everyone around her had already figured it all out. Her phone buzzed on the table, pulling her out of her thoughts. It was a message from Charlotte. Charlotte. How's Harvard going? I bet you're already acing everything. Don't let those big names intimidate you. You've got this. Kira smiled at the message, feeling a sense of comfort from her best friend's words. It wasn't the first time Charlotte had reassured her, but it always seemed to work. Kira. It's going, okay. It's different than I expected. Everyone here seems like they already have it all together. I'm just trying to find my place. Charlotte. You already have your place. You're Kira Jenkins. Don't forget that. No one has your story. Kira read the message again, and for the first time that day, she allowed herself to feel a little less nervous. She had her own journey, her own path, and that was enough. Just as she was about to put her phone away, she felt a tap on her shoulder. Startled, Kira turned around to find a smiling Melissa standing behind her, holding a tray of food. Mind if I join you? Melissa asked, her smile warm. Of course, Kira replied, motioning to the seat across from her. Melissa set her tray down and sat down, giving Kira a curious look. How are you feeling about everything? You seem a little quiet lately. Kira hesitated, unsure of how to explain the whirlwind of thoughts in her mind. I don't know. It's just overwhelming. There's so much pressure here. Everyone is so smart, so accomplished. I feel like I'm just trying to keep up. Melissa nodded sympathetically. Yeah, I get that. It's like you're constantly trying to prove that you belong. But, hey, they accepted you here for a reason. You've already proven you're capable of handling it. Kira smiled faintly. I know. It's just hard to feel like I belong when there are so many other people who seem like they're already ahead of me. Melissa grinned. Trust me, everyone's in the same boat. You just don't see their struggles. You're doing great, Kira. And don't forget, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be you. Kira took a deep breath, feeling a little lighter. Melissa's words were just what she needed to hear. It wasn't about being perfect or measuring up to everyone else, it was about doing her best and trusting in her abilities. As they ate lunch, Kira's thoughts turned to Evan Richards again. He seemed to have everything, but that didn't mean she had nothing to offer. She didn't need to compete with him, she needed to compete with herself. Her story, her journey, was enough. She was enough. The rest of the week passed by in a blur of classes, meetings, and late-night study sessions. Kira found herself adjusting to the rhythm of life at Harvard, but there were still moments of doubt, moments when she questioned whether she was truly cut out for this place. Yet, every time she felt like giving up, she remembered Charlotte's words, "No one has your story." And so, she kept going. That Friday, after a particularly grueling week of classes, Kira decided to take a walk around campus to clear her head. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the historic buildings of Harvard Yard. The peacefulness of the moment reminded her of why she had chosen this path in the first place. This was her dream. And she was living it. As she walked, her phone buzzed again. She checked the screen and saw that it was a message from Professor Samuel Brooks, one of her mentors from the Legacy Scholars Program. Professor Brooks. "Kira, I just wanted to take a moment to congratulate you on your efforts so far this semester. I know it's not always easy, but you've made a strong impression in your classes and with your peers. Keep pushing yourself, you're on the right path." Kira smiled, the weight in her chest lifting a little more. Maybe, just maybe, she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Harvard was proving to be everything Kira had imagined, and more. Every day felt like a new challenge, a new opportunity to learn and grow. But with every opportunity came a new layer of competition, and Kira was starting to feel the pressure more than ever. It wasn't just the coursework, which was demanding in itself, it was the other students. Kira had quickly realized that at Harvard, everyone was driven, ambitious, and hungry for success. And one person in particular seemed to be taking the competition to a new level, Elena Parker. Elena was a sophomore who had been placed in Kira's Introduction to Political Science class. Tall, confident, and fiercely intelligent, Elena had a way of commanding the room whenever she spoke. Kira had noticed her the first day, sitting in the front row with her hand constantly raised, always ready with a sharp answer or an insightful comment. At first, Kira had admired Elena's confidence, until she started to notice something else, the subtle but undeniable way Elena seemed to be sizing her up. It began with small things, Elena making cutting remarks about Kira's ideas during group discussions, or giving her a glance of superiority when Kira presented her thoughts in class. At first, Kira brushed it off. Maybe it was all in her head. But as time went on, it became clear that Elena wasn't just another confident student, she was actively competing with Kira, even though they hadn't spoken much outside of class. The tension finally came to a head during a class debate on a controversial political issue. The professor, Dr. Howard, split the class into two teams, and Kira and Elena found themselves on opposite sides. The debate was heated, with both teams fiercely defending their positions, but it wasn't just the topic that was intense, it was the way Kira and Elena went back and forth. Each time Kira presented her argument, Elena would counter with something sharper, more calculated. Every point Kira made seemed to be met with a rebuttal that left her second-guessing herself. Finally, as Kira delivered her closing statement, she felt a wave of frustration wash over her. Elena's criticisms had worn her down, and despite her preparation, Kira struggled to find the confidence to deliver her final words. She fumbled over her thoughts, trying to regain her footing, but the damage was done. When Dr. Howard wrapped up the debate, he praised both teams for their contributions, but Kira couldn't shake the feeling that Elena had outperformed her. The feeling was unsettling, she wasn't used to being outshined like that. After class, Kira sat at her desk in the library, replaying the debate in her mind over and over again. Did Elena really get the better of her? Had she come off as unprepared? Was she not cut out for this after all? She picked up her pen and started jotting down notes, trying to clear her mind. But as she sat there, her phone buzzed with a new message. It was from Professor Brooks. Professor Brooks. Kira, I wanted to let you know that I was impressed with your participation in today's debate. You brought a unique perspective to the table, and your argument was compelling. Don't be discouraged by one moment. Remember, confidence comes from consistency. Keep pushing yourself. Kira stared at the screen for a long moment. She had been so consumed by her own doubts that she hadn't realized her own strengths. Professor Brooks was right, one moment, one debate, didn't define her. But that didn't mean the rivalry with Elena was over. If anything, it felt like it had just begun. The next few weeks passed in a blur. Kira continued to keep her head down and focus on her studies, but Elena's presence in her classes was impossible to ignore. Every time they crossed paths, whether it was in a group project or a casual hallway conversation, Kira could feel Elena's eyes on her, sizing her up, waiting for the next opportunity to show that she was the better student. One afternoon, as Kira was leaving the library after another long study session, she ran into Elena again. This time, however, it wasn't just a passing glance. Elena smiled coolly at her, her expression almost calculating. "Hey, Kira," Elena said, her tone polite but with an edge of something else, something more competitive. "I just wanted to let you know that I'm looking forward to our next group project. It's going to be interesting to see how you handle it." Kira forced a smile, trying to mask the unease creeping up her spine. "Sure, it'll be fun." Elena's smile widened. "Oh, I'm sure it will be. But just so you know, I'm a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to group work. I don't settle for mediocrity. I hope you can keep up." Before Kira could respond, Elena walked off, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. Kira stood there for a moment, her heart pounding in her chest. What does that mean? She thought. Was Elena really trying to intimidate her? And if so, why? What was it that made Elena feel the need to prove she was better than Kira? Kira took a deep breath and shook her head. She couldn't let Elena's words get to her. She had been through worse. She had faced far greater challenges, and she wasn't going to back down now. She had earned her place at Harvard, and she wasn't going to let anyone, especially Elena Parker, make her doubt that. Later that night, Kira sat down at her desk and opened her laptop. The group project with Elena loomed over her, but instead of feeling intimidated, Kira focused on what she could control, her preparation. If Elena wanted to compete, fine. Kira was ready to show her that she could stand her ground. She began organizing her notes, outlining her ideas for the project. She knew she could do this. She wasn't just here to participate. She was here to succeed. The next day, Kira met with her group. Elena was there, of course, but this time, Kira didn't feel the same wave of anxiety. She was prepared. And she was determined to hold her own. As the discussion began, Elena started with her usual confident remarks, but this time Kira didn't hesitate. She spoke up with clarity, presenting her research and ideas without fear. As the meeting went on, Kira felt more and more in control. Elena might have been sharp, but Kira was prepared. And in that moment, she realized that the real competition wasn't with Elena, it was with herself. She was competing against her own doubts, her own insecurities. And she was winning. By the end of the meeting, Elena had said very little. Kira had managed to guide the conversation in a way that highlighted her strengths, without resorting to confrontation. She didn't need to beat Elena at her own game. She just needed to be herself, and in that, she had already won. As the group dispersed, Elena didn't say anything. She simply gave Kira a long, assessing look before walking away. Kira felt a sense of calm wash over her. She had faced down the rivalry, and instead of letting it tear her down, she had used it to fuel her growth. It wasn't about beating Elena, it was about proving to herself that she was capable, no matter who stood in her way. It had been several weeks since the group project with Elena, and Kira had settled into a routine. Classes were in full swing, and the pressure of Harvard continued to mount. Yet, despite everything, there was something different about this particular week. A shift in the air. An unexpected change in the way things felt. It happened during a late-night study session in the library. Kira had decided to stay up late to finish an essay for her political science class, hoping to get ahead before the weekend. The library was quieter than usual, the only sounds being the soft click of keyboards and the faint murmur of students working in their own world. As Kira typed away, she heard footsteps approaching. She didn't look up, figuring it was just another student finding a place to study. But then, the footsteps stopped beside her desk, and a voice spoke up, one that Kira knew all too well. Kira. She looked up, startled to see Elena standing there, her arms crossed in front of her. For a second, Kira thought she might say something snide or dismissive, but Elena's expression was different, softer, almost hesitant. "Can I sit down?" Elena asked, her voice quiet. Kira blinked, unsure of how to respond. Elena had always been confident, almost intimidating. To see her this, unsure was jarring. Sure. Go ahead." Elena slid into the chair across from Kira, setting her backpack down beside her. For a moment, neither of them said anything. The silence stretched on, uncomfortable at first, but then Kira noticed something. Elena wasn't looking at her like she usually did. There was no competitive edge in her gaze, no judgment, just a quiet curiosity. "You've been working hard," Elena said finally, glancing at Kira's screen. "You've been taking the lead in the group projects. It's impressive." Kira raised an eyebrow, unsure of where this conversation was going. "Thanks," she replied, trying to keep her voice neutral. She wasn't sure if Elena was complimenting her genuinely or if this was just some kind of manipulation. But for some reason, she decided to take her at face value. There was a long pause before Elena spoke again. "I've been thinking a lot about our rivalry," she said, her words slow, as if she was choosing them carefully. "And I realized I've been a little hard on you." Kira's heart skipped a beat. Wait, what? Elena was admitting that she'd been tough on her. This wasn't the Elena Kira knew, the sharp, driven girl who always seemed to be one step ahead, always ready to outshine everyone else. "I don't know why I did it," Elena continued, her tone almost apologetic. "I guess I thought that if I could be better than you, it would make me feel more secure. I didn't realize it was making you uncomfortable. And for that, I'm sorry." Kira blinked, trying to process what she was hearing. Elena Parker, apologizing? The girl who had always been so confident, so seemingly untouchable, was admitting that she had been wrong. It felt surreal. "No, I get it," Kira said carefully, wanting to avoid any awkwardness. "I mean, I've been feeling the pressure too, you know. It's just Harvard. Everyone's so smart and driven. It's easy to feel like you're falling behind." She looked down at her essay, unable to meet Elena's eyes. "But I didn't think of you as a threat. I just wanted to do my best. I guess I just wanted to feel like I belonged here." Elena nodded, her eyes softening. "I understand. I felt the same way. I still feel that way sometimes. But instead of working with you, I made it about beating you. And I see now how dumb that was." Kira was silent for a moment, taking in Elena's words. The tension she had felt around Elena for the past few months suddenly seemed to dissipate. Maybe, just maybe, this wasn't some one-sided rivalry. Maybe they had both been struggling with the same thing, trying to prove their worth in a place that felt both exciting and intimidating at the same time. "You don't have to apologize," Kira said, her voice softer now. "We were both just trying to figure things out." There was a brief pause before Elena spoke again. "I think we could work better together, you know. We're both here for the same reason. We want to succeed, and we're both capable. Maybe we don't need to compete so much." Kira smiled slightly, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. It was strange to think that, after all their tension, Elena was now suggesting they work together. But maybe this was what they both needed, an understanding, a shift in how they saw each other. "I think that sounds like a good idea," Kira agreed. "We could definitely learn from each other." Elena grinned, the first genuine smile Kira had seen from her in weeks. "Good. No more of this petty stuff. We'll focus on our goals. Together." Over the next few weeks, Kira and Elena began to form an unexpected alliance. It wasn't immediate, there were still moments when old habits crept in, when they both slipped into competitive mode. But they were learning how to work together, how to use their strengths in a way that benefited them both. In their next group project, Elena was quick to acknowledge Kira's ideas and insights. Kira, in turn, began to see Elena not as an adversary, but as a valuable team member. They complemented each other in ways they hadn't expected. Kira's meticulous attention to detail balanced Elena's bold, visionary ideas. Together, they made a powerful team. The change in their relationship didn't go unnoticed by their classmates. Some were surprised, even impressed, by the transformation from rivalry to collaboration. It seemed that the two of them had found a rhythm, a balance of respect and understanding that allowed them both to thrive. One day, after a particularly successful group presentation, Elena turned to Kira with a thoughtful expression. "You know," she said, "I think we make a pretty good team. I think we could even be friends, if we wanted to." Kira raised an eyebrow, a smile tugging at her lips. "Friends, huh? I never thought I'd say this, but I think I'd like that." Elena grinned. "Yeah, me too." It was strange, in a way, how a rivalry had evolved into something more meaningful. But as Kira looked at Elena, she realized that sometimes, the strongest relationships came from the most unexpected places. And in that moment, Kira knew that this journey, this path she had fought so hard to be on, wasn't just about proving herself. It was about growing, learning, and forging connections with the people around her. Even with the ones she thought were her biggest competition. It had been several weeks since Kira and Elena had made peace with their rivalry, and life at Harvard seemed to be taking on a new rhythm. Classes, assignments, and group projects still demanded her full attention, but there was a sense of calm in her life now that had been missing before. Her bond with Elena had evolved into something surprisingly supportive, and as the semester went on, Kira found herself not only succeeding academically but thriving in ways she hadn't expected. It was a crisp, chilly afternoon when Kira found herself sitting outside near the quad, sipping on a cup of coffee as she reviewed her notes for an upcoming exam. The breeze rustled the leaves above her, and the sun was just starting to dip behind the tall buildings that surrounded the campus. Harvard's campus was beautiful in a way that still amazed her, even after months of being there. It was full of history, of stories, and it had a way of making her feel small, yet connected to something much larger than herself. Kira was so absorbed in her thoughts that she almost didn't notice Elena approaching. "Hey," Elena greeted, her voice light, a slight grin on her face. "Mind if I join you?" Kira smiled, motioning to the empty bench next to her. "Of course. Have a seat." Elena sat down, taking a deep breath and looking around. "It's nice out here, huh? I love the fall weather." "It is," Kira agreed, adjusting her notes. "It's been a crazy semester, but I'm starting to appreciate moments like this." "Just, taking a breath." Elena nodded, her face softening. "I know what you mean. It's easy to get caught up in all the competition, the pressure to always be the best, and forget that there's more to life than that." Kira raised an eyebrow, surprised by the vulnerability in Elena's tone. "You've really changed," Kira said softly, a hint of admiration in her voice. "I never thought you'd say something like that." Elena laughed quietly, her eyes glimmering. "Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about that lately. About what really matters here. It's not just about outshining everyone else. It's about learning, growing, and finding out who you really are. And, I don't know. I think I've spent so much time trying to be perfect that I forgot how to enjoy the journey." Kira smiled at that. She understood completely. "I get it. I've had moments like that, too. Sometimes, I feel like I'm just trying to keep up, like I'm not really living in the moment. But having you as a friend, someone who understands what it's like to be here, it's been helpful." Elena looked at her, her expression sincere. "I'm glad to hear that. I think we've both learned a lot from each other. And I think we've got a lot more to learn, too." Before Kira could respond, they were interrupted by a familiar voice. Kira. Elena. It was Jason, one of Kira's classmates and a friend from another group project. He waved as he approached, his friendly grin wide. Mind if I join you guys? I could use a break from the library. Of course. Kira said, gesturing to the other empty seat on the bench. We're just talking about how crazy this semester has been. Glad to have a moment to breathe. Jason sat down with a sigh of relief, tossing his backpack on the ground beside him. Tell me about it. I feel like I've been living in the library. It's nice to be outside for once. Elena laughed. We've all been there. The library becomes your second home. Or your first, depending on how you look at it, Jason added, winking. So, how's everyone doing with the political science exam coming up? Are we all feeling prepared? Kira groaned, rubbing her temples. Honestly? I'm nervous. It's a lot of material, and there's so much I still want to review. Elena grinned, clearly more confident. I've been going over everything, and I feel pretty good about it. But I'm happy to study with you guys if you want. Maybe we can go over the key points together and help each other out. Kira's eyes brightened at the offer. That would actually be really helpful. We can go over the key topics and quiz each other. I could use a little more confidence going into this. Jason nodded. Count me in, too. We'll make it a study session, and I'll bring snacks. That's the key to staying focused. Elena raised an eyebrow. Snacks? You're bribing us with snacks to study? Jason shrugged, a playful smile on his face. Whatever works, right? The three of them laughed, the easy camaraderie between them a stark contrast to the competitive tension that had once existed between Kira and Elena. It was moments like these that made Kira realize how much her perspective had changed. At first, she had seen Harvard as a battleground, a place where success was earned by outshining everyone else. But now, she was starting to see it as something else, a place for learning, for growth, and for building relationships that went beyond just grades and achievements. Later that evening, the trio met up in the library for their study session. It was strange, but Kira felt excited to sit down with Elena and Jason. The energy between them was light, even though they all had a lot of material to cover. Elena had brought her notes, and Kira shared hers, and together they broke down the key themes for the upcoming exam. As they quizzed each other, Kira found herself learning in ways she hadn't anticipated. Elena's ability to synthesize complex ideas quickly helped her understand the material in a new way, and Jason's humor kept the mood light, making the intense studying feel less overwhelming. By the end of the session, they had covered most of the major topics, and Kira felt a sense of relief. She still had work to do before the exam, but now, she felt more confident. More than that, she felt connected, not just to the material, but to the people around her. As they packed up their things, Elena turned to Kira, her eyes gleaming with a new sense of purpose. Thanks for doing this. I think we're going to do great on this exam. Kira smiled back. We're definitely ready. And I'm glad we're doing this together. Jason nodded in agreement, flashing a wide grin. Group study sessions, officially the best thing ever. As they walked out of the library together, Kira realized something that she hadn't quite understood before. Success didn't have to come at the expense of others. It didn't have to mean that she was constantly competing, always trying to outdo everyone around her. Success could come from collaboration, from learning together, and from supporting each other through the challenges that came with being at a place like Harvard. And maybe, just maybe, the real test of her time here wasn't how well she could outshine others, but how well she could grow, not just as a student, but as a person. The day of the political science exam arrived with an intensity that felt almost palpable. Kira had spent the past few days studying relentlessly, going over her notes, and reviewing every concept she thought might appear on the test. She'd worked with Elena and Jason, quizzing each other and reinforcing the material until it felt like their brains might explode from all the information. But no matter how much preparation she did, there was no escaping the feeling that the weight of the world was on her shoulders. The sky outside was a dull gray, clouds heavy with the promise of rain, mirroring the storm of nerves that swirled in Kira's chest. As she stood in front of her dorm building, waiting for Elena and Jason to meet her, she could feel her heart pounding faster with each passing second. This was the moment she had been working for, the test that could determine how far she had come at Harvard. The test that could define everything she had struggled to achieve since the day she had arrived on campus. "You ready?" Elena asked, walking up to her with Jason in tow. Both of them looked surprisingly calm, as if the exam wasn't weighing on them the way it was on Kira. "I don't know if I'm ready," Kira said, laughing nervously. "But I'm as ready as I'm going to be." Jason gave her an encouraging smile. "You've got this. You've worked hard. We all have. Just take a deep breath and do your best." Elena nodded in agreement. "Exactly. And remember, this isn't the end of the world. If we don't do as well as we hope, it's not the end of the journey. We'll get through it together." Kira looked at them both, feeling a surge of gratitude. She wasn't alone in this. She had her friends beside her, supporting her. They had all been through the grind together, and now, they would face this challenge as one. The three of them made their way to the exam hall, the cold air stinging their faces as they walked across campus. As they entered the building, the atmosphere inside was thick with tension. Students sat at desks, their eyes glued to their notes as they crammed in the last bits of information. Kira felt the weight of the room settle over her, but she pushed it aside. She wasn't here to be overwhelmed. She was here to show what she was capable of. They found their seats, and Kira took a deep breath before sitting down. The exam paper was handed out, and as Kira scanned the first few questions, her nerves began to ebb away. She had prepared for this. She recognized the key concepts, the theories, the critical thinkers that had been discussed in class. It was all so familiar, and for the first time in a long while, Kira felt a quiet sense of confidence settle in. The first hour passed in a blur. Kira worked through the multiple-choice questions with ease, answering them quickly but carefully. She had learned this material inside and out, and now it was just about applying what she knew. Then came the essay questions, the ones that always made her second-guess herself. She took a deep breath, flipped to the first one, and began to write. Her hand moved across the paper, writing about political ideologies and their influence on global events. She felt the words flowing easily, as if her mind had opened up and everything she had studied had clicked into place. The hours passed, and before she knew it, the proctor was calling time. Kira leaned back in her chair, stretching her arms above her head. She felt a rush of relief mixed with exhaustion. She had done it. The test was over, and now all that was left was to wait. As the students filed out of the exam hall, Kira caught up with Elena and Jason, who both looked surprisingly calm, considering the stress they'd been under. "How'd you feel?" Kira asked, her voice hoarse from hours of concentration. Elena smiled, her eyes bright. "I think it went well. I'm just glad it's over. I'm going to treat myself to something sweet when I get out of here." Jason chuckled. "Yeah, I think we all deserve a little celebration. How about we go get some ice cream afterward?" Kira couldn't help but laugh. "That sounds perfect." They walked out of the exam hall together, the tension of the day melting away. But even though the exam was over, the reality of what had just happened started to sink in. Kira knew that, for better or worse, this was the defining moment of her academic journey so far. Everything she had worked for, all the late nights, the sacrifices, the moments of self-doubt, it had all led to this. The next few days were filled with the usual mix of relief and anxiety that always followed an exam. Kira tried to focus on her other classes, but her mind kept drifting back to the political science test. Had she done enough? Would she get the grade she needed to feel like all her hard work had paid off? It was a waiting game now, and Kira hated waiting. On Friday afternoon, a week after the exam, Kira was sitting in the campus cafe, sipping her iced coffee, when she saw Elena and Jason walk in. They waved at her from across the room, and Kira smiled, motioning for them to join her. "Hey, how's it going?" Kira asked as they sat down. "I'm feeling good about it," Jason said, his voice casual. "It's over, so I'm trying not to stress about it. How about you, Elena?" "I think I did okay," Elena said with a slight shrug, though there was a glint of nervousness in her eyes. "But I'll be honest, I'm a little anxious to see how it all turned out." Kira nodded. She could feel the same tension in the air. "Yeah, me too. I keep second-guessing myself." But before any more anxiety could settle in, their phones buzzed. It was an email notification from the political science department. Kira's heart skipped a beat as she opened the email. She saw the subject line, "Political Science Exam Results, Your Grade." Without thinking, she clicked on it. The page loaded slowly, her eyes scanning the screen as her stomach twisted into knots. "Congratulations, Kira. You scored in the top 10% of the class." She stared at the words for a moment, her mind racing. Top 10%. She had actually done it. All of the hard work, the late nights, the doubts, it had paid off. "Holy crap," she whispered under her breath. Her fingers trembled as she showed the email to Elena and Jason. They both leaned over to look at the screen, their faces lighting up with excitement. "Are you serious?" Elena said, her voice a mix of awe and admiration. "Top 10%. That's amazing, Kira." Jason grinned wide. "I knew you had it in you. This is huge." Kira couldn't help but laugh, feeling the weight of the moment settle in. She had done it. She had proved to herself that she belonged here. And more than that, she had found her place, not just as a student at Harvard, but as someone who could face challenges head-on, push through the doubts, and come out stronger on the other side. The day after the exam results arrived, Kira felt like she was walking on air. The weight that had been on her shoulders for weeks, no, months, was finally gone. Her grade in political science wasn't just a number, it was proof that she belonged here, at Harvard, in this world that sometimes felt so far removed from where she had started. She had been celebrating with Elena and Jason when she got the news, but now, with the buzz of excitement starting to settle, she found herself back in her room, sitting in front of her desk, trying to catch her breath. She couldn't quite believe how far she had come. There had been moments, so many moments, when she doubted herself, when she wasn't sure if she could keep going. But now, she saw things differently. Her phone buzzed on the desk, interrupting her thoughts. It was a message from Professor Thomas, her political science professor. "Kira, I hope you're doing well after the exam. I wanted to personally congratulate you on your top 10% score. We have a guest speaker coming next week, Dean Henry Williams from the Harvard College Admissions Office. He's offering a workshop on career opportunities in the political science field, and I thought you might be interested in attending. It could be a great chance to network and explore your options. Let me know if you'd like to join." Kira's heart skipped a beat. Dean Henry Williams, the dean from the admissions office? The same man who had seen her potential in the very beginning and who had given her the scholarship that brought her to Harvard in the first place. She had heard about his workshops, but this invitation felt different. It wasn't just a chance to learn. It felt like an opportunity, one that could help her chart the next steps in her journey. Kira immediately typed back. "Thank you, Professor Thomas. I'd love to attend the workshop. It sounds like a great opportunity. Looking forward to it." She hit send, her fingers tingling with a mix of anticipation and excitement. This could be the moment that pushed her even further, helped her discover where her path at Harvard would lead. She had always known that she wanted to make a difference, to leave her mark on the world, but she had never been entirely sure of how to do it. Now, with every passing day, the pieces were beginning to fall into place. The following week, Kira found herself sitting in the packed lecture hall, waiting for Dean Henry Williams to take the stage. The buzz of excited students filled the room as they chatted about their own aspirations and the careers they hoped to build. Some students were focused on law, others on policy, and a few were still unsure of their exact direction. But Kira knew one thing for sure: this workshop could help her figure out what she needed to do next. The door opened, and Dean Williams stepped onto the stage, his presence commanding attention. He was a tall man, in his late 40s, with sharp features and a calm, yet confident, demeanor. His reputation preceded him. He had been a key player in many of the university's successful outreach programs, and he was known for his passion for mentorship. "Good afternoon, everyone," he began, his voice strong and steady. "I'm Dean Henry Williams, and I'm here to help guide you through one of the most important decisions you'll make during your time at Harvard: what comes next after graduation. Many of you are wondering what the best next steps are, how to navigate the complex world of career opportunities, and how to use your degree to make the impact you've always dreamed of." Kira's ears perked up at that. This was exactly what I need, she thought. Dean Williams went on to outline a variety of paths that political science majors could pursue, everything from law and government work to nonprofits and global organizations. He spoke about the importance of networking, internships, and, above all, finding a path that aligned with personal passions and values. He paused, looking over the room. "I know many of you are overwhelmed by the possibilities, but I want you to remember this: it's not just about where you go, it's about what you bring to the table. Your unique experiences, your perspectives, those are what will set you apart in a competitive world. The world needs leaders who can think critically, who can innovate, and who can make bold choices for the greater good." Kira felt a rush of energy course through her. She had always believed that the world could be changed by people with passion, drive, and a sense of purpose. But now, she understood that to make a real impact, she needed to channel that energy into something specific. She needed to take the next step toward that greater purpose. After the lecture, Dean Williams invited students to approach him with any questions they had. Kira hesitated for only a moment before standing up, pushing through the crowd of students gathering around the stage. When she finally reached him, she took a deep breath and introduced herself. "Dean Williams, I'm Kira Jones. I'm a first-year student here, and I wanted to thank you for offering this workshop. It's really helped me gain some clarity about the direction I want to take. I'm passionate about public service, and I'm trying to figure out how I can make the most of my time at Harvard to pursue that dream." Dean Williams smiled warmly. "It's great to meet you, Kira. Public service is an incredibly important field, and I think it's great that you're already thinking about how to use your time here strategically. Have you considered applying for internships with some of the nonprofit organizations that work on policy issues? There are also opportunities in government, whether local or federal, that can give you invaluable experience." Kira nodded, her heart racing. This conversation was exactly what she had needed to hear. "I've thought about it, but I'm not sure where to start." "I understand," Dean Williams said, his expression turning thoughtful. "I can give you some resources to get started. You might also want to check with the Career Services Office. They offer one-on-one coaching, and they can help you find internships that align with your interests. But most importantly, don't be afraid to take risks. The world is full of challenges, and the best leaders are the ones who step up and meet those challenges head-on." Kira felt a sense of determination building inside her. She could feel that this was the beginning of something big. Harvard had already given her so much: new friendships, new knowledge, a sense of belonging. But now, it was time to take that next step, to forge a path that was uniquely hers. As she left the lecture hall that afternoon, Kira walked across campus with a renewed sense of purpose. The path ahead wasn't clear yet, but for the first time, she felt certain of one thing: she was ready to make a difference. Whatever came next, she would face it with the same determination and passion that had brought her this far. Her journey at Harvard was only just beginning. The weeks following Dean Williams' workshop felt like a whirlwind for Kira. Her mind raced with all the possibilities that were now laid out before her. She spent hours in the library, speaking with professors, exploring internships, and attending career fairs. Every new opportunity seemed to bring with it more choices, more paths to consider, and the weight of making the right decision began to settle in. Kira had always been driven by the desire to make a difference, but as the days passed, she realized that the world of public service, the very field she had once been so certain about, was vast and filled with endless options. There was the possibility of working for a nonprofit, creating policy changes in underserved communities. She could intern at a local government office, fighting for the rights of marginalized groups. Or, she could apply for prestigious internships at think tanks and global organizations that shaped political discourse on a massive scale. Each path felt like it had its own set of promises, and each one made her feel both excited and overwhelmed. The future was no longer a simple, clear vision, it was a sprawling landscape, full of twists, turns, and unexpected detours. And Kira realized that making the right choice, the best choice, meant not just following her passion but aligning it with her skills, her goals, and her vision for the kind of impact she wanted to have. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day of meetings and applications, Kira sat in her dorm room, surrounded by a pile of brochures, internship descriptions, and emails. Her laptop screen glowed softly in the dim light. The room was quiet, save for the soft hum of the refrigerator in the corner and the occasional rustle of papers as Kira sifted through her options. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Elena. "Hey, you free for dinner? I need to talk. I've got some stuff on my mind." Kira hesitated for a moment before responding. "Yeah, definitely. Let's meet in 15. She set her phone down and stared at the pile of papers in front of her. She felt stuck, paralyzed by the decisions ahead of her. But perhaps, just maybe, a conversation with Elena would help clear the fog in her mind. They met at a small cafe near campus, a favorite hangout for the students in the political science program. Elena was already there when Kira arrived, her face tense with something Kira couldn't quite place. "Hey, how's it going?" Kira asked, sitting down across from her. Elena smiled weakly. "I'm okay. Just trying to figure things out, you know." "I feel that," Kira said, laughing nervously. "I'm kind of in the same boat. I've been thinking a lot about what comes next after graduation. There are so many choices, and every single one of them feels huge. Like, if I make the wrong choice, it could derail everything I've worked for." Elena's expression softened. "That's exactly what I'm going through too. I've been offered an internship at this global organization, and it sounds like everything I could want. But there's a catch. I'd have to leave everything behind for a year to do it, leave my family, my friends, everything here. I'm scared I'll miss out on something, or that I'll regret it." Kira nodded, feeling a pang of sympathy for her friend. "That's a big decision. I don't know what I'd do in your shoes. But then," Elena continued, "I think about what I want to do. I want to make a real impact, work with people who are shaping the future of policy. And this internship could give me that chance. I just don't know if I'm ready to take the leap." Kira paused, reflecting on Elena's words. Taking the leap, that was the exact phrase she had been wrestling with for weeks. She knew she wanted to make a difference, but did she have the courage to take that next step, whatever it might look like? Was she ready to leave behind the safety of her comfort zone at Harvard and face the unknown? She took a deep breath and then spoke from her heart. "Elena, I think the hardest part is knowing that no matter what we choose, it's never going to be a perfect path. There's always going to be something we leave behind, something we miss out on. But maybe the best thing we can do is choose the one that excites us the most. That makes us feel alive. Because in the end, we're not going to regret the choices we made, it's the ones we didn't make that will always haunt us." Elena's eyes softened, and she gave a small, wistful smile. "You're right. I think I needed to hear that." Kira nodded. "And for me? I feel like I'm at a crossroads. I've got these internships I've applied to, some are with think tanks, others are with smaller grassroots organizations. I think I'd be great at both, but I'm not sure which one is the right fit for me. I keep thinking about whether I should aim for the prestigious option, or if I should go with something that aligns more with my values. It's hard, you know. Elena placed a hand over hers. I get it. But if I've learned anything, it's that you'll never have all the answers. Sometimes you just have to trust yourself. Kira felt a wave of gratitude for Elena's words. Her friend had always been a source of strength, someone who understood the complexities of the choices they were both making. For the first time in weeks, Kira didn't feel so alone in her decision-making process. The next few days were filled with reflection. Kira spent hours journaling, sitting in the quiet of her dorm room, sifting through the pros and cons of each internship, each path. But ultimately, it wasn't just about the resume or the prestige, it was about finding the place where she could truly make a difference. She had come to Harvard not just for the education, but for the opportunity to shape the future. One evening, as Kira sat on the campus lawn, looking at the stars, she finally made up her mind. She would take the internship with the grassroots organization. It wasn't the easiest path, or the one that promised the most immediate rewards. But it was the one that felt the most aligned with who she was and the impact she wanted to make. It was time to take that leap of faith. The following week, Kira received the acceptance letter. Her heart pounded as she read the email aloud to Elena and Jason, who were sitting across from her in the cafe. I did it, she whispered, her voice trembling with excitement. I'm in. I'm going to intern with the grassroots organization. I'm going to help create change on the ground level. Elena and Jason both erupted into applause, their faces lighting up with pride. That's amazing, Kira. Elena exclaimed. I know you'll make a difference there. Jason nodded, grinning ear to ear. I'm so proud of you. You made the right choice. Kira smiled, feeling a sense of calm wash over her. She had taken the leap. She had made the choice. And now, her journey was about to take a new turn. The excitement of receiving her internship acceptance had barely worn off before Kira found herself stepping into a new world. Her decision to join the grassroots organization had set her on a path she couldn't yet see clearly, but one that felt right. It was no longer about the prestige of Harvard or the validation of others, it was about the work she would be doing and the difference she hoped to make in the world. And now, with everything moving forward, she could feel the weight of the responsibility on her shoulders. This was it. This was the beginning of the real work. The first day at the organization was a blur of introductions, meetings, and paperwork. Kira had expected it to be overwhelming, and it didn't disappoint. The organization, Hope for All, focused on advocating for policy changes to improve the lives of underserved communities. Kira was assigned to the policy research team, and as she sat in the meeting room that first morning, she couldn't help but feel a rush of nervous excitement. The walls were adorned with colorful posters promoting campaigns for social justice, equality, and community empowerment. In the corner, there was a stack of petitions waiting to be signed, and next to it, a bulletin board showcasing the impact the organization had made, successful campaigns, community programs, and stories of change. It was a far cry from the sterile, academic environment of Harvard, but it felt more real, more grounded. This was where the change happened, where voices that often went unheard were amplified. Her supervisor, Lena, a no-nonsense woman in her early 30s with sharp eyes and a warm smile, gave her a tour of the office. Welcome to Hope for All, Kira. We're excited to have you on board. Your background in political science will be a huge asset to our team. You'll be doing research to support our upcoming policy campaigns, and we need someone who can think critically, push boundaries, and help us shape meaningful changes. Kira nodded, her heart pounding. She had been preparing for this moment for years, but now that it was happening, it felt surreal. She wasn't just a student anymore, she was part of something that had the potential to change lives. The first few weeks were intense. Kira found herself buried in research papers, policy briefs, and meetings with community leaders. She learned quickly that making change wasn't as simple as drafting policy proposals. It was about understanding the real-life implications of those policies, listening to the people whose lives they would affect, and finding ways to navigate the complex systems of power that stood in the way of progress. One afternoon, after a long meeting with local activists, Kira sat alone in the break room, exhausted but feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. She had spent hours listening to stories of families struggling to access healthcare, of individuals fighting for basic civil rights, and of communities demanding better education systems. It was overwhelming, but it also reminded her why she was here. This was the work she had always dreamed of doing, making a tangible impact, helping real people. As she sipped her coffee, Lena walked in, her eyes scanning the room before settling on Kira. She approached her with a slight smile. "How's it going, Kira? Settling in okay?" Kira nodded, feeling grateful for the kind words. "It's a lot to take in, but I'm learning so much. I never realized how deeply intertwined everything is, how difficult it can be to actually push through meaningful change." Lena sat down beside her. "Yeah, it's never easy. But you've got the right mindset. It's not about quick fixes. It's about building relationships, understanding the complexities of the issues, and using the knowledge we have to make the best decisions possible. The people we work with, community members, activists, policymakers, they're all part of a long-term process. And you'll be a part of that process too." Kira let the words sink in. The enormity of the task didn't intimidate her, it inspired her. This was the work she had been preparing for, the work she had always dreamed about when she first sat in those lecture halls at Harvard. The textbooks and theories she had studied now felt distant, replaced by the raw, real-world complexities of activism, policy change, and social justice. And in that moment, Kira knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. Weeks turned into months, and Kira's role within Hope for All grew more significant. She began attending community meetings, helping to draft policy proposals, and even speaking with local government officials about the organization's initiatives. Her research, which started as just a task, became a crucial part of the advocacy efforts. Kira felt herself growing, both in her professional skills and in her understanding of the world around her. Her work at Hope for All was never easy, but it was always meaningful. There were days when the weight of the challenges seemed insurmountable, when it felt like the work would never end or the changes would never come. But there were also moments of victory, small victories that made the struggle worth it. The passage of a new local law that protected tenants from unjust eviction. A successful campaign that led to increased funding for public schools in low-income areas. The thank you notes from community members whose lives had been improved by the policies Kira had helped create. But the most rewarding part of her work wasn't just the accomplishments, it was the relationships she built along the way. She had formed bonds with activists, policymakers, and community members who were just as passionate about creating change as she was. She had come to understand that this journey was not just about her, it was about the collective effort of people coming together to push for a better future. One evening, after another long day at the office, Kira found herself walking across the campus of Harvard, the lights from the buildings casting long shadows on the ground. She had just finished a meeting with a group of alumni who were interested in supporting the organization's work, and as she made her way back to her dorm room, she couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come. When she had first arrived at Harvard, she had been uncertain about her place in the world. She had questioned her abilities, wondering if she truly belonged. But now, walking across the familiar campus, Kira felt a deep sense of pride. She had found her path, not just through her education at Harvard, but through the work she was doing at Hope for All. This was where she had always belonged. She had learned that success wasn't about accolades or fame, it was about making a difference, no matter how small. It was about doing the work that needed to be done, even when it felt difficult. And it was about staying true to who you were, no matter where the road took you. Kira looked up at the sky, the stars shining brightly above her. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for sure, she was ready for whatever came next. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?